Hello, everyone. This is Brandon Leach at UAT, a game designer. This is my board's presentation for my degree in video game design. I'm going to talk about the objectives as well as my proof of completing them, going step by step. So let's just get started. Prototype and complete original games for multiple platforms following the full game production pipeline. That's objective one. First proof of this I have is Temple of Death, a platformer I made where the prompt was the player had to fail in order to win, in which, in this case, the player has to die in order to progress by using their body as platforms and weighted tools. So you see some title screen prototypes, the game in action, and also there's a milestone you could click here that shows my hours I put in. So you can also play this on itch.io if you click this link or visit my portfolio, which I should show at the end. Next item, Roller Coaster Tycoon Mini, a board game I made that essentially is a traversal from Roller Coaster Tycoon, the video game, into a board game. And you can see this is traversed through the pipeline, uh, going from rules into actual physical documentation, which you can see the rules in these rule documents here, which they actually make a change from this one to this one, as well as you can see a physical gameplay of the game right here, where I have a player play testing the game and verifying if the game feels right. And that actually ended up causing it to complete the pipeline, and we ended up enjoying it. We have official rules now. Last one I have is Anomalous Storage, a Doom 2 level I had made for a level design course. You could see paper maps here, which eventually got expanded upon in later milestone updates. You could see a milestone 3 submission I have here where I describe the way I made the level, why I made the level the way I did, and so on and so forth. And you can even see the reviews I have from people that have tested my game or just tested my Doom 2 level, as well as a post mortem I had on making the level. Moving right forward, we have create and implement game elements, systems, and play mechanics using industry standard tools, techniques, and production methods, including scripting, programming, and applications. My proof of completion for this first video is I have a Unreal 5 lighting demo that I had made when I was first getting used to Unreal. You can kind of see this is very light heavy. There's not a whole lot of programming in this one, but it's just really kind of messing around with the capabilities of Unreal in terms of rendering. Moving right to the next video, I have a level I had made relatively recently in the programming for designers class where you could actually see some of my coding skills to make doors and light triggers and cutscenes. And this whole video discusses my decisions when making this level and so on and so forth. Then we have this next video right here, which is a house walkthrough that I had made, which shows using materials in Unreal and allowing reflective surfaces. So this is also kind of like a lighting and conceptual demo of making realistic environments. So that's just another piggyback of that. For my SIP, we have a few submissions here that show that. We have an example of a program that we made using a GUI, a UI generation system, for my Cyber UI kiosk where it generates a UI. That's a script using pre-made functions from someone. Here we have some installation UI systems that I made in my SIP, sprited by myself. So that's some use of Game Maker Studio's spriting system right there. Next, we have demonstrate effective game design practices and techniques within the project scope and context, such as genre, style, platform, and audience. These three are all cut from the same cloth, these first three. They're all three games made in Game a Week, so their scope was all within a week. You'll see that in this milestone Excel again showing up here, which you can also view for Be Managed. So this first game had a genre and style where it needed to essentially reverse the player in some sort of way, reverse the game in some sort of way, in which my game, you could see in the gameplay, when the player enters a rift, everything they do, all their controls are completely swapped, and they need to learn how to adjust to that. Next game, it was focused around the concept of bees. So I made a Metroid style shooter where you had to kill bees and collect honey. Then this last game was Shape Invasion, where everything needed to be a geometrical shape, in which I made a Galaga clone where you had to swap weapons to kill the right enemies with the right shapes. Moving right along. So just to re-hit before I move right along, these games again, all made under a scope, and they all essentially had to follow an established theme, genre, and they kind of follow different platforms. The audience was relatively broad, but these can all be played in numerous different ways. Again, the videos highlight on that a bit more. Next one, just demonstrate the ability to evaluate game designs for a variety of gameplay mechanics, game applications, and game genres. So this is a lot of review stuff. This first piece of proof is when I worked with Team Biominds for Projects in Studio 1 and 2, we had a post-mortem where we talked about what we did well and what we did, well, not so well. And in this case, this was a lot of stuff about team-based stuff, but also about mechanic stuff, what we had to cut, what we had to keep. So I have that included here. You can view that submission right here. We also have a peer review with the team, which is like a 50-minute long video, a little bit longer, but it's me and the Biominds team talking about a point and click game another team had made in a conjunction to ours. We talk about what mechanics we liked, what we didn't like, how they could improve, and the overall quality of the project based on that. So that's an example of that evaluation criteria right there, based on mechanics, for example. Here is a game 200 submission I did where I talked about the rewarding capabilities of Doom Eternal and Cyberpunk and how they do it well versus Redfall, which is known to have a lot of falls in that area. That submission again can be reviewed here, where I go in depth on why they failed and why they succeeded. Levels best and worst was another submission I did where I talked about the best level in Doom 1, aka E1M1, one of the most iconic levels in all of gaming, versus Map 24 of Doom 2, which is well renowned as one of the worst levels in that game and in the vein of a lot of games. So I talk about what made E1M1 good and iconic versus what made Map 24 gimmicky and a failure. So that's an example of evaluation of gameplay right there. Lastly, I have a game review document that I generated. I reviewed System Shock, the remake, and Lego 2K Racing. So I talk about their faults and their pluses as well. So some more evaluation criteria there. Right here, I have effectively articulate game design elements and mechanics across disciplines utilizing written and verbal communication. These first three are verbal communication of my design philosophy as well as how I design things um, in terms of perspective. So I have a Mars level and a Moon level that I made for Production Studio for designers, or programming for designers, as I was, and I talk about why I made the level, how I made puzzles, and essentially where I got to where I was based on the knowledge I learned in that course. That's for those three videos right there. Then below that, we have a discussion between myself and the lead in Biominds, which we talked about mechanics. Again, I was the level designer for this team. So in these two snippets you could read here, we talk about stuff like a grappling hook, which we had like a collaborative discussion on whether or not we wanted that in the game. Fun fact, it actually ended up making it, just not in the same vision as I had, but just goes to show stuff that I had mentioned and discussed ended up being articulated into a larger project that's being developed. So I also have a game design document I made for a concept of a game called Delay and Distortion. You could read that here. So just some more written documentation for you. Lastly, we have established collaboration, mentorship, professional leadership skills by working with other disciplines to deliver highly polished and completed projects. Right. So that's heavily denotated in Production Studio 1 and 2. So I started this off with a lot of that. We have a snippet of a discussion in Discord between myself, the lead, and a few other designers, where I was kind of getting told what was expected of me, and I was also explaining what I was contributing to the project at that time. So there was a lot of that going on, a lot of industry level discussion. Here we have some snippets of levels that I kind of paper mapped out and presented to the team, which were later reviewed as seen in the Discord chat logs here. But some kept, some removed. Then we have a stand up, which discusses, of course, my work and other people's work in the project, just to really solidify that industry level professionalism, following that hierarchy between a lead and people below that. And then, of course, right here we have a scrum, or not a scrum, rather, but a Trello page that kind of discusses the tasks that were issued to the team. So with that, that is my boards page showing all of these completed boards. I believe I did a excellent job of showing these completions. And just to further hone down, I do have a portfolio page of two games you could play: Captain Boom, a funny breaker clone, as well as Temple of Death, which I talked about earlier. Again, thank you for watching, and I look forward to hearing the feedback.